Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're playing Drawback chess, where each player is assigned a random drawback, like Lame Duck, where you can't move your king, or True Gentleman, where you can never capture a queen. My goal is to win 5 games. Let's get started with game number 1. Alright, game number 1, we get the black pieces, and our drawback is Savior Complex. When in check, you must move your queen or lose. And we've actually had this drawback before. It's not terribly difficult to work with. You just have to make sure that if you're ever put in check, you're either willing to block with the queen, or you're not put in check in the first place. So we'll play something nice and defensive here, like a little Perk Modern sort of setup. We can do a little fianchetto, castle the king out of the way, and the sooner the king is castled, the less likely it is that we'll be put in danger. We do get e4, we'll play d6. Knight to f3, we'll play g6, again with that fianchetto idea. We're now 3 moves away from being castled. I'm literally counting down the moves because the sooner the king is out of the center, the more likely it is that we won't even have to deal with our drawback. Now, the other thing is, if we do enter an endgame, it's very, very likely that even if you're in a completely winning position, at some point you have to submit to a check, even if it's on the way to capture a whole bunch of pawns or something. So we also want to win this game relatively early on, or at the very least, it has to have one of the longest middle games chess has ever seen, and we need to be attacking with all of our pieces throughout the game. Because again, as soon as we trade off into that endgame, any little check could throw the whole game out of whack. We get rook to e1. Let's play knight to d7. We do have ideas of e5 here. Ooh, the opponent has the idea first. Do we actually take here is the question. I don't think so. I'm going to play knight to g4. If the opponent takes, I just take back. We both have one single open file, although the opponent does control it at the moment. e6 here could be very interesting. We'll see if they're actually looking to open up my king position. Ooh, bishop to f4 honestly wasn't even a move I considered, but I guess it does defend the e5 square. We were threatening to win a pawn there. I think now I'm going to go ahead and, whoops, my mouse just glitched out. Going to go ahead and take on e5 anyways, with the idea that if the opponent ever takes with a pawn, there's queen b6, looking at f2, looking at b2, right on cue. All right, queen to b6, looking for queen takes f2. The opponent is now also down under a minute. We do get 2 seconds back for every move that we make, but it's usually not a position you want to be in when you have to deal with a drawback plus your opponent. We'll see how they elect to defend this. I mean, there's many moves here that defend it. Knight to e4 defends it, queen to d2, bishop to e3, rook to f1, rook to e2. All of these moves defend f2. The opponent is now approaching 30 seconds left on the clock. And if I could tell you this was the only problem that we were going to pose, then maybe it's justified, but they're now approaching 20 seconds. Queen to d2 does defend it. I'm now wondering why they had to think about that for so long. It's possible they know that defending it doesn't do anything, but I'm not willing to take that risk quite yet. Let's play rook to d8. The idea of knight to f8, queen protects the rook. If the opponent does double up on the d file, that's no longer an option, and I might even have to close it up with e6. Okay, whoa, knight to a4, kicking the queen off this diagonal, fair enough. We'll play queen to b5, counterattacking the knight. If the knight moves back to c3, I mean, I guess we could move queen back to b6, maybe queen to c5. We'd be met with the same move pretty much, so maybe queen to a6 on the next turn. 4 seconds left. Let's see if the opponent decides to repeat the position. I definitely won't. They have 1 second left to even do that. We get rook a to d1. We'll play e6 to stop any ideas of e6 from the opponent. And we do win game number 1. Let's go ahead and pop up the info board. All right, you won. Your opponent ran out of time. Your opponent's drawback was indecisive. Your pieces can't capture if they could make multiple capturing moves. Oh, interesting. And apparently our drawback is harder than that. I wouldn't necessarily agree. I feel like our drawback is a little bit easier to solve. And once you realize that you need to castle really quickly and you just can't enter an endgame, it's not the end of the world. Whereas for the opponent, if you have any dreams of playing an attacking game of chess, you might as well not go to sleep, because that dream is not coming to fruition. As soon as one of your pieces just eyes 2 of your opponent's pieces, that's it. It's pretty much incapable of becoming part of the attack anymore. So either way, we do win game number 1. Let's go to move on to game number 2. All right, game number 2, let's play d4. We get the white pieces, and our drawback is messy divorce. Your pieces can't move from the queen side to the king side, or vice versa. So let me guess, bishop to f4 isn't possible? Wow, that is disgusting. Oh my goodness, so all of these pieces have to stay here, and all of these pieces have to stay here. That is so bad. Okay, looks like we're doing a little fake fianchetto, because this bishop is fianchetto on the long diagonal, but it can never even see past e4. So this will be interesting. I don't love this idea because I'm typically a player that likes to coordinate all of my pieces into like one solitary attack, but obviously that is no longer an option for me. Get bishop to d6, the opponent living my dream of moving pieces across the center line of the board. Let's play a3, I guess. Maybe knight d2, c4. We have to look for a different attacking idea here because we can't just play passive and let the opponent play whatever they please. But the problem is now our armies are fragmented. So we have basically one army on the queen side, one army on the king side. But who knows, maybe my opponent will allow c5 and, oh, blunder the bishop? Don't mind if I do take a free bishop. I guess they could trade it off for 2 pawns, but that opens up the queen side, which is where the king is. Yep, so they do decide to take the 2 pawns in exchange for the bishop. Let's play b4. And I guess this works out neatly because our queen, I guess you could say, is stuck on the queen side, but she can also participate now in the attack, which is where the king is on the queen side. We get queen to b5. Do I sacrifice another pawn and allow queen takes to get rook b1? Or is that a little bit rash? Let's play bishop b2 first. We do get rook to g8, so the opponent is deciding to set this up a little bit slowly as well. Let's play rook to b1, so we can hold on to the b4 pawn, or at least play a4 and have a discovered attack idea. And it's quite funny because even if we do play a4, the opponent might avoid this just because of bishop takes f6, but we know that that's not even an option. Okay, we get knight to e7 instead, protecting a4 with this little battery, so a4 isn't possible at the moment anymore. Let's play knight to b3. Maybe we can grab one of these outposts. Maybe the rook actually ends up on c1 after all, and I really have no idea what we're going to do with this bishop. Maybe just bishop d4 and it has to stare somewhere towards the queen side. We get knight to f5. Let's go rook to c1. I kind of like the idea of playing knight c5 and trading it off for the bishop, and that's possible within the parameters of our drawback, but I know that these are the 4 pieces that I will ever have for this attack. So I don't really want to start trading them off unless it's absolutely necessary. We get knight to e4. I'm not really sure what that's looking for. Maybe knight back to d6 as a defensive idea. Either way, let's play. I guess queen to c2 is fine. I mean, it's a kind of obvious idea. We're just staring at c7 looking for mate, but that doesn't mean it's not worth setting up at least. Okay, right? Bishop to c6 blocks that idea immediately. Maybe now we play knight to a5, targeting the bishop. We do have the possibility of winning a pawn here, but I'm not really sure if winning a pawn justifies completely evaporating our attack, basically diluting our attack. We do get king to b8. It's such a shame that I can never move across the center line. That's such a bad drawback. Okay. How about this? Knight to e5, and the opponent doesn't have to know that I can't actually take that. Because I'm threatening to take on f7 as well, so maybe they'll play like bishop to e8 and allow queen takes c7. Otherwise, in theory, they're going to allow takes, and there's a fork here between the king and the rook, not to mention the lost pawn on c6. Not to also mention the fact that the queen hasn't been traded, so the attack is still alive and well. Now, we personally know that that's completely impossible, but the opponent doesn't, I hope. Not to mention now the time situation is evened out. We get rook to d6, which does mean I can just take this for free, boot the rook. Rook to d7. I guess I can just move back. Rook back to d6, fair enough. Let's play g4, and I know it seems a little bit like a random move, but I don't want this knight defending d4. That seems like a critical square for what? That's just free. Okay, we definitely take free pieces. I was going to say it seems like a critical square for my bishop to land on, or potentially this knight to reroute to d6 and target the queen and the bishop. But the opponent does the dirty work for us. We get rook to f8 now. It's still not easy. It's still not an easy conversion. There aren't even ideas of like taking, and like knight d7. I guess the rook defends anyways, but we're down to 30 seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and try trading off some pieces. Okay, we'll play e3 here, blocks in the bishop. It's quite funny here because the opponent could just take on e5, but they don't know about that. Rook to d8 allows this. I don't love the idea of trading off into an endgame, but I feel like if we're up an entire piece, it's probably justified. We'll pre-move the recapture as well. That way it's a little less suspicious that we completely missed this idea. It's weird, we can't even double up the rooks because the rook can never cross over to the queen side. But again, we're up we're up 2 whole pieces. Since when are we up 2 whole pieces? I must have missed something critical there. But okay, we'll take it. Let's move the rook back to c2. And with 2 whole extra pieces, it's quite difficult to see how we don't win this. King up, let's move the pawns up as well. We'll probably march our own king forward on the king side. We are evening out on time a little bit, which is not great. Rook to f8, we'll just play h4. This rook has to find somewhere to play, and it's never going to be by crossing over to the queen side, so we do have to open up a file over here. And to be honest, as long as we stay up on time relative to the opponent, this should be a pretty buttery smooth win. a5, b5, we'll kind of close that up. Rook to d5, there's no new ideas there. We'll start pushing pawns. h6, king g3, I guess, maybe looking for this. Rook goes over, sure, that's totally fine. If you want to sacrifice on d4, be my guest. Ooh, c6. I think taking with the pawn just makes the most sense there. Yeah, king shuffles over. We'll continue to look for g5. 3 seconds left for the opponent to create an attack out of thin air. We will take back with the rook, looking at g7. And there might even be ideas of forcing promotion with the pawn. But the opponent does, in fact, flag. And with that, we win game number 2. Let's go ahead and pop up the info board. All right, you won. Your opponent ran out of time. Your opponent's drawback was Velociraptor. You can only capture a piece if your opponent has moved a piece of that type in their last 3 moves. Oh man, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not even gonna try to wrap my head around the implications of that throughout this specific game, but that does not sound like a fun one to play with. We have 2 wins under our belt. Let's go to move on to game number 3. Before we move on, if you want to improve your openings, I recommend checking out the sponsor of this video, Chessreps.com, which offers easy step-by-step opening lessons. Drill your opening to climb to the top of the leaderboard, or do puzzles that come from real games. Like this puzzle, where I can click back to see how we got to this Jobava London position, before delivering this nasty fork. Puzzles are completely free, so you can keep doing puzzles to increase your opening elo, and then take that practice into a real game, like I did to crush my opponent with the Jobava London. If you want to support the channel and become an opening menace, check out chessreps.com. Now, back to the video. All right, game number 3, we get the black pieces. Oh, now, actually, I think we've played this opponent before. Let's reveal drawbacks. Well, actually, no, this is a different opponent. It's so long that you guys can't even see the full name, but their name is Let's Reveal Drawbacks, in quotes, when game starts. I made fun of this last time because people now have terms and conditions in their games. Okay, our drawback is scouting ahead. As long as you have a pawn, you cannot move non-pawns ahead of your most advanced pawn. Okay, so we need at least one pawn that goes like haywire and goes super far into the position. And then our pawns can never move past that pawn, or rather our pieces can never move past that pawn. But if we have a very deeply rooted pawn, then we have a lot of the board that we can still play with. Why is the opponent playing a4? Let's go knight to f6. Bishop to b2, so it's not a copycat issue. Wow, a4 is so strange there, but okay. Let's play c6. We do get double fianchetto. Okay, let's just go h4 now. If the opponent does take, I can't take back because my d-pawn isn't far enough advanced, but it ruins their pawn structure so badly that I don't think it's all that awful. Okay, they do take back. Let's play knight to d7 with the idea of e5. We'll go ahead and grab the center, and with any luck, we can sort of root a pawn either on e4 or d4, and eventually take back. We'll play, e5, not quite yet. We need to support e5 a little bit better. Now we have 2 defenders. The opponent has 2 attackers, so we will be good on the next turn to play e5, e4. Nice, e5. No idea where this knight is headed. It's cut off on both of those squares. The only move it can make now is back, unless somehow maybe it supports c4. Either way, we get e3, we'll boot the knight. So we've now cemented a pawn far enough into the position that we can take on h4, and we're uprooting the knight from f3. Or at least the opponent thinks we are. We can't actually take that. Or actually, yes, we can. Sorry, that's my bad. I thought for a second maybe we couldn't take it because our pawn can't move further than another pawn, but that doesn't actually make sense. We do get knight to g5. Let's just take. We can't actually take on h2, even though it's a nice idea. Again, because the pawn only goes as far as e4. But we'll see how our opponent responds to this. If they play h3, they definitely don't know what our drawback is. Oh, d4 offers en passant here on d3. And I don't think I'm actually interested in that. Let's play knight to b6. I want to develop my bishop, target the queen, castle out of the way. I have hopes and dreams for this position. Okay, queen does move to e2. I believe we can just buy ourselves a tempo here. The only issue would be f3. If we take, the opponent takes back, and then we're actually threatened there. So maybe we don't want to play that. Okay, let's play. It's tricky. I would play rook to h5, threatening the knight, but then h4. Okay, I didn't want to play it like this, but we'll play bishop d7 and just look to sort of castle nice and early. I'm assuming the opponent is looking for the exact same ideas, so we'll be symmetrical, and it's not ideal, but it's playable. Okay, the opponent castles, we'll follow suit. Oh wait, if we follow suit, we drop f7. Holy smokes. Playing like a beginner today. Okay, bishop e6 was necessary to defend that square, and then we can castle. Holy smokes, okay. We're gonna have to go ahead and buckle up here. King to b1, finally we can castle. Wait, you're kidding me. Has this been on the board the whole time? Threatens the knight, threatens the bishop? Okay, well, it's not on the board anymore because we can just trade off. Okay, holy smokes. I need to open up my eyes. Okay, queen back to e1. We'll go ahead and develop this bishop to d6, put some pressure on h2, although that's been free this whole time, so I'm not sure if our opponent hasn't just noticed that. Okay, we do get f4. Again, I don't really want to uproot this pawn, not to mention it's now very nicely cemented on e4. There's no other pawn that can uproot it, so for the whole rest of the game, we can at least play up to the 4th rank. Let's go ahead and double the rooks. Okay, queen back to g1. Our opponent definitely thinks we can take on h2, and I really just want to find a way to sort of counterattack the queen side. I really like the idea of like a6, b5. Maybe in some crazy future, we somehow cement a pawn really far into the position. We get bishop to e1, our opponent clearly trying to get rid of this rook battery that's pestering h2. Although I think we can just move back and we're totally fine. Finally we get pawn to h3, let's play b5. Again, we can't move past the 4th rank, so this isn't actually hanging. I think our opponent might not be a very strong player, because they would have noticed this. Unless maybe now they've noticed it, now they're defending it. So I think that's the case. Our opponent probably isn't a terribly strong player, which is okay, but I also think they probably don't have a terribly difficult drawback as a result. So, and that's a little bit presumptuous. I'm assuming that a better chess player will be better at drawback chess, and that's not necessarily the case. There's no way they have the reset drawback, do they? If I see one more piece move to the back rank, I'm threatening the queen on the next turn, and we're taking our free material. Let's play king over. If the bishop does take, it sort of just opens up a line against their own king, so I have no issue with that. Okay, bishop does take on a6, and I was going to say that the reset drawback would make a lot of sense. 1, because we're on move 25, and 2, because the bishop can start on f1, and one of the requisites of that drawback is that it has to be on a square that the piece could not have started on. Same thing with the rook on h1. Let's play rook to a8, definitely hits the bishop. And this piece we can actually take if the opponent doesn't notice, but more than likely they'll play like bishop to e2, hit the rook, probably just move it back. Queen to f1 actually makes a lot of sense too. That's a good find. We'll go ahead and kind of force the issue here. Queen to a7. Now we have 2 pieces looking at a4. There are mating ideas to follow on a3, a1, etc. So the opponent has to be a little bit careful here. If bishop to e2, I might even think about just taking. If the opponent takes the rook, a5. This is super aggressive. Question is, do I play knight to c4 and allow these sorts of complications? That honestly looks like a lot of fun, but knight to c8 might be a little more sound. Problem is, knight to c8, the opponent can take with check, and the attack loses a lot of momentum. So you know what? Let's just go for it. Knight to c4, and it's going to be what it's going to be. Okay, the knight does take, so if I take with the queen, the problem is I can never take on a5 because of the bishop. Okay, that's a little bit of a severe oversight. We'll go ahead and take, just with the idea of maybe crossing the rook over. We can sacrifice the rook if it does lead to mate somehow. It's not ideal, but it's a possibility. Ooh, bishop takes back. Now we actually can sacrifice the rook, can't we? Holy smokes, that might actually lead to mate. Okay, we will take on a5. I was saying that sort of half ironically, but it seems the position is actually open enough for this to lead to mate. Holy smokes, that's quite incredible. I think it's inescapable as well. King to b2 is probably the best try. King to a1. Oh, we don't have this because we can never move past the 4th rank where the pawn is. Holy smokes, I got this far and managed to forget about my own drawback. That's incredible. Okay. How do we salvage this? Okay, I guess bishop b4 is the best shot to reinforce d2. Wow, that is such a shame. Oh, that could have been a beautiful sacrifice leading into mate if we didn't have that insane drawback. With any luck, maybe we get like resignation by the opponent, but it's a little bit far-fetched. But we'll see, Maybe if I can stack up enough pressure somehow, maybe the opponent will think that all hope is lost. It definitely wouldn't be the first time that's happened. Okay, we get pawn to c3. Fair enough. Rook to b8 for the double sack. It's probably overly optimistic, but we'll give it a try. Queen to a4, we win back the bishop. Still playing on the 4th rank in b4. We can take the bishop. I'm kind of hoping that maybe we'll see some symptom of our opponent's drawback and be able to take advantage of it, but even that seems awfully unlikely at this point in the game. Okay, king shuffles over to e2. Let's at least pretend to create some pressure with the knight. Of course, we can never take this. And I wish there were some way that I could force a pawn through, but all of my pawns are held back. Not to mention my pawn structure, forgetting my drawback, is awful as it is. We get queen to g1, clearly looking for queen takes g7. This is insane because in any other position, this would be absolutely devastating, the attack that would follow here. But I just can't move past that pawn, which is insane. Okay, let's do this. Queen to b5 with the idea of a discovered check. If the opponent takes, we just play something like knight to e7 and kind of hold on for dear life. Yeah, knight to e7, maybe we reroute to f5 at some point. Although, it's trivial, the knight can never make it past this pawn anyways. King does move to f2, moves out of the line of sight of the queen. Let's move the queen over to h5. Pawn moves up to h4, and the truth is the opponent can sort of just buy time here, and there's nothing I can really do in this position. I mean, my best shot is probably to play like c5 or something and hope that the opponent can't take. But like I said earlier, I'd be willing to bet the opponent's drawback isn't terribly difficult. Okay, let's do this. King to e8. I'm kind of hoping the opponent maybe blunders a check and drops the queen. And if they don't, then there are ideas now of c5. It would be unfortunate if it just opened up the file. But other than that, I'm not seeing how I create any play here. I need to get forward with a pawn somehow. Yeah, rook to a1, kind of a devastating move to see on the board. Because now if c5, there's just rook to a8, king moves up, check again, king moves up, takes, and we're basically mated there. I mean, there's king to c6, but we're not holding on for much longer in that position. Not like we really have a choice, so we might as well play c5. Oh, we do get a capture. Interesting. It doesn't really change much, but we'll take back with the rook. If we do get checked, maybe rook to c8 instead. Sure, fair enough. We're going to pre-move the recapture as well. Rook to a7 doubles down on the knight. Okay, queen to f7, only way to defend that. Pre-move the recapture there as well. Ooh, rook takes. I can just take with the king. I wonder why they took with the rook first. Oh, I'm scouring my brain because this stinks of something weird happened there that they didn't feel they could take the queen. Let's offer another queen trade, see what happens. This is very suspicious. Rook to g1. Let's play rook to f8. If the queen never moves out of the way, I might just look for h4. If not, then e5. Ooh, this is very, very strange. We'll play e5. If the opponent takes, it's a free queen. Or at least as far as they know, it's a free queen. I can never actually take the king. It would be a pretty big bluff, but at this point, this whole game has been a big bluff. We do get h6. I will take. Queen to c5 check. They really don't want to trade queens here. And I'm not going to sit here and try to justify why that might be the case. I'm just going to play against it. Oh, they actually traded queens. That was kind of unexpected. Let's go ahead and take back. King shuffles over. Wow, this is so strange. We'll play f3 check. We've now rooted a pawn even further into the position. This is almost certainly our pawn now. We'll get like rook to g6 check. We just march forward with the king, shuffle over, and eventually we can pick that up. And this might actually be winning now, which is insane. Okay, that is a free pawn. If rook g4 targeting e4, just king e5 defends it. King comes up. I can just play check. I can never actually take this rook, but it does force the king back. Oh, rook to d1 does allow me to take the king, and with that, we actually win game number 3. Absolutely insane turnaround. Let's go ahead and pop up the info board. All right, whatever this says here, the key lesson from this game is never resign in drawback chess. Never, never resign. Just keep playing and keep trying to work your opponent, and you probably have a better shot than you think. But either way, we did win game number 3. Our opponent's drawback was Gambler. Can't move a specific piece type, re-randomized every move. Oh, that would actually definitely explain some of their weird move choices. Because I was criticizing my opponent for not playing terribly precisely, but literally not being able to move certain piece types will do that to a game. All right, with that, we do have 3 out of 3 victories under our belt. Let's go to move on to game number 4. All right, game number 4, we get the black pieces, and our drawback is Warlord. At the start of move 12, I hate this drawback so much, and onwards, your king must not be on the first 2 ranks, or you lose. Okay, so how to actually do this? Let's start with F. Oh, that was a misclick. I meant to go F6. That's so bad. We have 10 turns left. Oh, but the opponent doesn't even do anything about it. Spectacular. We'll play E6 to at least support F5. And the idea here is to move the king to G6. So let's play G5. No, queen here check is quite bad. We'll play knight to F6 first to cover that square. E5 is a little bit of an issue. We are 2 hops away, so it's like we have 6 turns left to play with. Bishop to g5, we'll play h6. Why is my mouse spazzing out? Hold on a second. We're turning this off and turning it back on because I'm not in the mood to play a very good game and then lose to a mouse slip. Okay, let's try h6. If the opponent takes, maybe I just take back. Okay, the opponent decides to move back instead. We'll play g5 to follow that up. And we have 6 turns left to make our way up to g6. So king to f7 will be the first turn. If the opponent does take looking for queen to h5, there are ideas of trying to trade off the queen and replace the queen spot with the king. Okay, h3. We have 5 turns left. Do I play this now? I think so. I think I can just play king to g6. If g4, I just play f4 and close the position. Okay, we get bishop to e2, which is a little bit of an issue. We can just play h5 though. Obviously, we're not counting on the knight anymore to defend this. We're actually counting on the king and the rook. Do I feel comfortable with counting on the king for a task like that? Absolutely not, but it's necessary. We'll play d6. If the bishop just moves away, knight d7 to replace this knight. Oh goodness, the bishop actually does move away. I honestly didn't expect that. Actually, I'll hold off on that for a second and play e5. The bishop will move back, I play f4, and I've just closed up the entire king side very, very effectively. I mean, ooh, that's beautiful. Bishop back to d2, and I think I don't even have any concerns here anymore. I mean, I'm going to play h4 just for kicks, just to totally close up the king side. And now I'm just looking at what? Knight to develop, bishop develops. Everything here is quite nice for me. c6, so go ahead and pre-move the recapture on f6. Knight goes back to b4. If I see a trapped knight, I am going to target it, unfortunately. I think the opponent has no choice but to lose it for a pawn, or maybe allow the capture and take back, something to that effect. And now not only are we sitting with our king in the middle of the, not the middle of the board, but very far advanced in the position, but I think we're actually better here. We are now up a piece. The king side is completely closed off, meaning the pawns sort of sit all in a checkerboard sort of pattern, so it's very hard for pieces to migrate through that position. And the queen side is opening up. We have targets here on a2. I'm quite happy that we finally have a drawback that doesn't limit the mobility of our pieces. I mean, force is a very, very aggressive move, but besides that, we are free to play chess. Okay, the opponent's taking a bit here, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what I would do if I were the opponent, which I don't often do, because I feel like I'm jinxing it. But if I were the opponent in this position, I would sack the knight on g5, force the king to come forward, and then play g3. Open up some diagonals for the bishop, keep the queen on d1, she can always follow through, and try to just open up the king side in any way I possibly can. Bring the rooks in. I mean, I have to take advantage of this king. But the opponent has elected to play queen to c2. I'm going to develop for one more move, and then look to take on a2. Because it kind of feels like maybe the opponent wants to castle queenside. Oh goodness, I am going to take now, threatening check to win the queen. Okay, king goes over. I can just play queen to a8, now forcing rook to a1 again. And the problem is I think the opponent is looking to castle queenside to eventually have a kingside attack, but I think it's a little bit slow here. Queen to c3. If we play check, king here. If we play check again, b3. Check on a2, queen to b2. Check with the bishop, king moves up. I mean, that should be winning some way, somehow. Yeah, let's do that. Play check. Worst comes to worst, we simplify it into an endgame, and we're up a piece anyways. Yeah, check. There's only one safe way to defend this, which is b3. Right, we play check again. Again, only one safe way to block this, queen to b2. And yet another check, which again only has one safe way out, which is king to c3, after which we can probably just take. Oh goodness, queen takes, and with that we take the king to win game number 4. All right, we are 4 for 4 by some miracle here. Let's go ahead and pop up the info board. All right, you won. You took your opponent's king. Your opponent's drawback was modest. You lose if you have more pieces than your opponent. Oh, I guess in that case it makes sense why they gave away a piece. Maybe they were playing it more soundly than I realized, but either way, we do have 4 victories. Let's go to move on to game number 5. All right, game number 5, we are playing against 3000. Surely that's not an issue. Our drawback is devil on your shoulder. A devil is suggesting terrible moves for you to make. If you disobey it 7 turns in a row, you must obey it on the 8th. Devil wants you to play f7 to f5. Okay, so I can only disobey him 7 times in a row. It's going to suggest crazy stuff like losing my queen, for example, so let's play a little bit more reserved. I mean, you're never going to have a position where there are 0 bad moves, but we just have to minimize the number of bad moves we make. I would actually play this if I could guarantee the opponent would take with the pawn just because of the queen checking ideas, but I can't. So let's continue developing. We've now disobeyed it 2 moves in a row. We can only do that 7 times in a row before we must obey on the 8th. Okay, of course it wants me to play knight to e5. Let's play c5 instead, countering the center. If we can open up the position, we might be in a good spot here. I don't know how relatively bad our drawback is. If it's a really bad drawback relative to the others, there is a chance that the opponent has a bad one as well. We get pawn to d5, closes up the center, which is maybe not ideal for us, I mean. Let's try to fianchetto the bishop. Knight to f3. We've now disobeyed 5 turns in a row. I love the idea of the devil on your shoulder because the only thing I can imagine is the troll from King of the Bridge telling us what to play. We get knight to d2. Let's play knight to f6. We've now disobeyed 6 moves in a row. If we do it again, we must play on the 8th. Hopefully it'll suggest something like sacking in the center or maybe on d5. Okay, bishop to d3. Let's go to castle. And we're going to have to play whatever it suggests on the next turn. Of course, it's queen to a5. Queen to a5, hanging the queen is the only option we have. Oh, goodness. Okay. Why is the opponent not take? The opponent didn't even take. Oh, my goodness. This is huge. King to f2. I'm going to keep giving checks. Hold on a second. If my opponent isn't going to take my queen, I'm going to just keep giving checks until we figure out why not. King back to g1. Excuse me. Another check for you, my friend. I have to be careful not to do 7 more moves in a row and accidentally, like, actually lose the queen. I think, can I just take back? There's a reason they didn't take my queen. I don't know if it had to do with the check. Oh, there goes the queen. Okay, let's see. That seemed like we were on to something. I probably shouldn't have just taken back there. So check is definitely an issue of theirs. How do we take advantage of that? F5. Let's try to open up a file. Pawn takes. Keep taking my pawns? Oh, look at that delicious pawn you probably want to take. And I have lost the queen now, and I'm going to have to obey the troll in just a second. So I'm probably just going to Hail Mary like some crazy move. Let's go knight to e5. If the opponent takes, I just play rook to f1. If that somehow doesn't work, then you know what? That's my fault for hanging the queen. All right, rook to f1 does give check. We've now disobeyed the troll 7 turns in a row, so I don't even know if I can take the king on the next turn. Oh, the opponent takes, and I must play king to f7. Loses the king, and probably loses us game number 5. There's no way why would the opponent not take? That's insane. Why would the opponent... Okay, whatever. We're going to take on e6. This is such a strange position. The only reason I'm taking on e6 is I'm thinking in some crazy universe, maybe I play rook to f8, rook to f1, and somehow win the game. This should have been lost a move ago already, so I don't even understand how we've gotten this far. Actually, this should have been lost twice already. So this is a miracle that we've even gotten to this position. The opponent is literally up 25 points of material. It's absolutely insane. Bishop to d3, check again. Surely the opponent won't just be able to take with the exact same bishop. All right, they do take. Let's push a pawn, see what happens. I'll go ahead and zoom through this because this should be completely losing. I'm not even totally sure why the opponent is still playing this as they are. Okay, here we must play king to f6. Please take. Okay, if the opponent doesn't take here, I'm taking the queen on the next turn. Okay, they've promoted to a bishop. I'm pretty sure they're just swagging on us at this point. The only exception I can see to that is that their drawback is very specifically connected to queens and giving checks somehow. Okay, I'm just going to keep taking pieces. I mean, if they get too excitable, I'm just going to walk my king down to theirs and capture it. And the cool thing is the devil will probably agree with me because the devil will think, oh, these are terrible moves. I'm just going to keep walking down. You have to take my king. Wow, g4. And the funniest thing, I think I actually obeyed the devil by playing there. King g2? There's no way. Surely the opponent takes my king. Oh, king to f2? That's so crazy. We win game number 5. That is so insane. Okay, let's go to pop up the info board. All right, you won. You won. You took your opponent's king. Your opponent's drawback was Bishop Fan Club. You must promote to bishops. Your king and queen can only move diagonally. What? Why didn't they just take our king like 10 different times? That's so insane. And we had one of the hardest drawbacks ever. That's so hard that I might as well clip it and put that in the thumbnail at this point. But okay, I guess with that, we win all 5 of our games. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know down below which one of these drawbacks was the craziest, although I feel like we maybe already know the answer to that. And I will see you guys in the next one.